You're listening to the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.
We learnt a principle yesterday in the 19th chapter of Shabbat. Safek ein mechalalim alav et Shabbat. If there's a doubt, we don't break Shabbat. We don't break Shabbat to circumcise a child when there's a doubt. And we asked the question, well, okay, what kind of doubt might this have been? And the Mishnah mentions someone who's androgynous, but most of the commentators don't think that is the intent here. Most commentators think that this is generally about dates. And I wanted to mention one important principle, which we probably all know, but it is nevertheless useful just to mention it to get clear in our heads. And that principle is that circumcision happens on the 8th day if possible. If we can, we're going to circumcise it on the 8th day. There's a special mitzvah of doing it exactly on the 8th day. That's why we break Shabbat, to circumcise on Shabbat. And if we can't do it, then there's a mitzvah to do it as soon as practical afterwards. I mean, if you're not circumcised, if you're a man that's not circumcised, you have a mitzvah basically for the whole of your life to do it. So the mitzvah applies afterwards, but it does not apply before. There is no mitzvah at all to circumcise before the 8th day. The mitzvah just doesn't exist. And with that in mind, we can understand the Mishnah. We're going to pick up at Mishnah 4 in chapter 19. Misha ha'ilu shtein tinokot. Someone had 2 infants. Echad lamur l'char Shabbat ve'echad lamur b'Shabbat. One of them was due to be circumcised after Shabbat, and the other to be circumcised on Shabbat. So these 2 children must have been born just at nearly the same time, but not quite. One due on Shabbat, one due after Shabbat. And he got them mixed up. I guess, well, it's a stressful time. It's possible to do that. V'shachach, he forgot. Umalet shelachach Shabbat b'Shabbat. And the one who should have been circumcised on Sunday was circumcised on Shabbat. And the Mishnah says, chayav. He's liable for a sin offering because he's broken Shabbat when there's no mitzvah at all. If we're circumcising early, we're breaking Shabbat for no purpose at all. But let's have a look at the other way round. Echad lamul be'erev Shabbat, echad lamul b'Shabbat. One to circumcise on the eve of Shabbat, on Friday, and another to circumcise on Shabbat. V'shachach, and he forgot, same business. Umalet shel erev Shabbat b'Shabbat. And the one who should have been circumcised on Friday is circumcised on Shabbat. And Rabbi Eliezer, we know about Rabbi Eliezer. Anyway, we know about Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer mechayev chatzat. Rabbi Eliezer holds him liable to a sin offering. Rabbi Yoshua is going to exempt him. Rabbi Yoshua poter. Because, well, Rabbi Yoshua is relying on the fact that even if we circumcise him one day late, even if we circumcise him on the 9th day, well, there's still a mitzvah of circumcision on that day. So we're not breaking Shabbat for no purpose at all. And now the Mishnah is going to explore all of these different possible combinations of dates. This Mishnah, by the way, it's parallel to the first Mishnah in Megillah. When we get onto Megillah, we'll learn that there are all kinds of dates, when the Megillah can be read, and it can be read. We'll come to that. But in the same style, Katan nimol lishmona letisha vela'asara ula'acharasa velishnemasar lo pachot velo yoter. An infant is circumcised, a child is circumcised on the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. Neither earlier nor later. Ketzad. How so? How does it work? Now, neither earlier, we've already learned that there's no mitzvah of circumcision at all. before the 8th day. So, Keitzad, well, in the normal situation, on the 8th, we know that. Kedarko lishmona. If everything is going fine, we will circumcise on the 8th. But, nolad levein hashmashot, nimol latisha. If he's born at twilight, we're going to circumcise on the 9th, or on what may be the 9th. So he's born maybe at twilight on Monday evening. We don't know whether, was he born on Monday or was he born on Tuesday? We can't tell exactly. But we're going to be conservative. So if we assume that he's born if we assume that he's born on Monday and we circumcise him on the 8th day, the following Monday, well, maybe we're circumcising him early. And we know there's no mitzvah of circumcising early. If we assume he's born on the Tuesday, if we give him the benefit of the doubt and we push him back a day, well, maybe we've really got the 8th day, or maybe we got the 9th day. But we don't, that both are fine, because there's a mitzvah both on the 8th and the 9th day. In other words, if in doubt, we push forward, we don't push back. And that's why the Mishnah says, Nolad levein hashmashot nimol latisha. If he's born at twilight, if he's born on the boundary between 2 days, we're going to push forward 1 day, rather than run the risk of circumcising him early. So what about Shabbat? Well, we learned in yesterday's Mishnah, Safek ein mechalalim alav et Shabbat. If it's a case of doubt, we're not going to break Shabbat. So what if he's born at twilight on the eve of Shabbat? Bein hashmashot shel erev Shabbat. He's born just as night is falling on Friday night. Are we going to circumcise him the following Friday, or are we going to circumcise him the following Shabbat? Well, according to our rule, we should push forward. We should circumcise him on Shabbat. But there we're circumcising out of a doubt. We don't really know whether he's due on Friday or on Shabbat. And so the Mishnah says, Nimol la'asara. Let's push all the way forward to Sunday. If we know he's born on Shabbat, we'll break Shabbat to circumcise him. If we're not quite sure whether he's born on Shabbat, we'll push forward to Sunday. Bein hashmashot shel erev Shabbat nimol la'asara. We're going to push to the 10th day. So now I think the pattern starts to become very clear and easy. Yom Tov l'achar Shabbat. What if Sunday's Yom Tov? Nimol l'achadasar. He's going to be circumcised on the 11th, because we're not going to break Shabbat for a doubt, we're certainly not going to break Yom Tov for a doubt. What if it's a 2-day Yom Tov? What if it's a 2-day Yom Tov? What about Rosh Hashanah? Remember, we're in Eretz Yisrael right now. So we're not going to think, we're in the Mishnah, we're in Eretz Yisrael, we're not thinking about a 2-day Yom Tov in the diaspora, Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galuyot. But we're thinking about a 2-day Yom Tov in the land of Israel. Shnei Yamim Tovim Shel Rosh Hashanah. 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Nimol Lishnei Masar. He is circumcised on the 12th day. Now, all that, of course, applies to a healthy baby. And it's very interesting. We've talked about saving life on numerous occasions in the last few Mishnayot. And it's interesting, the Mishnah concludes, Katan hachole ein mohalin oto ad sheyavri. An infant who is sick, we don't circumcise him until he's healthy. And both the Rambam and the Bartanura make exactly the same comment at this point. I brought you the Bartanura. Well, we've looked a lot of the Rambam recently, so I brought you the Bartanura, but I assure you that this comment is also in the Rambam. And we've talked before about the fact that the Rambam's a doctor and he's very, very conservative on anything to do with medical issues. And the Bartanura says, and the Rambam says, V'yavru alav shiva yamim shlemim. 7 complete days should pass. Me'et la'et miyom she'yavri, from the time that he is healed. Ve'achar kach malin oto. So we leave 7. We don't circumcise him immediately when he's healthy. When he's healthy, we actually leave him 7 clear days, and then we circumcise him. That's the Bartanura and also the Rambam. So then the final Mishnah of this tractate just deals with details of what makes a circumcision, so to speak, satisfactory or not, kosher or not. Eluhen tzitzin hamakvin et hamila. These are the shreds which might invalidate circumcision. Basar hachofet rov ha'atara, flesh that covers the greater part of the corona. Ve'eino ochel bat truma. The Gemara will learn out that just as an uncircumcised person can't eat from the Pesach offering, and we're going to come across the Parsha of Bo in just a couple of weeks, and we'll learn that the people of Israel had to circumcise themselves before eating the first Pesach. And similarly, when they ate the first Pesach in the desert, they had to circumcise. An uncircumcised person can't eat the Pesach, and the Gemara learns that an uncircumcised priest can't serve and can't eat truma. So this invalidation of the milah would also invalidate a kohen from serving or eating truma. V'im hayabal basar, if he was chubby, if he was fat, matakno mipnei mariat ha'ain, that he must repair it for appearance's sake. The mohel has to do this on Shabbat. And the idea of, I think that the rabbis are really shocked and disturbed. Maybe this is because we're in Hadrianic times, at the idea that someone would look as if he wasn't circumcised. And we know that there's discussion in Josephus about people who looked like they weren't circumcised, and it's an idea that fills the rabbis with great discomfort. Malvil or parait hamilah, if he's circumcised but he didn't uncover the circumcision, this is the membrane just underneath the foreskin, ke'ilu lo mal. It's as if the circumcision has to not taken place. This is absolutely essential. And it's interesting, by the way, just in terms of our discussion yesterday, that these are the only items that the Mishnah regards as absolutely essential for the circumcision. So the sucking of blood that we discussed yesterday and that is carried out differently today is not regarded as essential in this closing Mishnah, the closing Mishnah of the chapter on Milah on Shabbat. We know that the closing Mishnah in any chapter is particularly significant, and so this one is too.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.